it's not a small thing to say that I want to honor my friend. John Gallus worked hard for the last 15 years to try to bring a pro soccer team to Eugene, Oregon. He and his brother finally got to a point where they found a great owner to do it. And unfortunately, John's not going to be here to fulfill that. So I'm here to help do that.
Get to know your district here on Morning Kickaround. We've touched on this location in the United States a few times. The history has been ups and downs, but looks like it's on its way up. We talked to the new owner and the announced to return to action or start action in 2027. And now Sporting Cascades has their first ever head coach. And joining us now, head coach Darren Sawatzky. Welcome to Morning Kickaround and congratulations on the new job.
Thanks, Robert. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks for coming by, Darren. Obviously, big move from one side of the country to the other. You leave Richmond after a long time there, and I'm a Northern Virginia guy, so I have some affinity for Richmond. Tell us, what was it that led to this decision for you?
Well, first, I'm very close friends with Rob Ukrop. He was my roommate with the New England Revolution when we played in MLS together. So we go way back. That's how I ended up in Richmond, and I have great respect for him and much gratitude for the time that I've spent there. Being a head coach in one place for almost 7 seasons is a long time. I'm very lucky to have done that. But to have an opportunity to come back to the Northwest and really honor my friend John Gallus, when they came and showed interest, there was really no way I wasn't going to look at that.
And so you have a history in the United States, coaching abroad too. So I guess for folks out in Eugene, Oregon, that are learning about your history, what could you say that you are bringing to this brand new team in their town?
Yeah, I have a history, obviously in the Northwest. I grew up in Seattle, but I went to the University of Portland and I played for Clive Charles, who's an absolute legend in the game. I mean, he is still littered all over professional and collegiate soccer in the United States right now, even after him having passed many years ago. So a great affinity for Oregon in general. I spent a lot of time in Portland. My very first professional team was the Cascades Surge in Salem, Oregon, before I tried to make it in Mexico and then ultimately MLS. So, I have a great history here. It's a wonderful place to live. I have a lot of friends up here. It's just a really exciting opportunity.
Well, so that opportunity and starting from scratch, and you mentioned John Gallus, and obviously I'm sure that's, the motivation to do something in Eugene is in honor of John Gallus, but to start a club seems like a big challenge, to launch a team, to find the players, to be good from, hopefully day one. Darren, seems like a tough thing.
Yeah, no question. You're to have the opportunity to coach in Richmond, a club that's the longest running professional team and consistently running professional team in the U.S., and then to come with a brand new project is going to be a grand challenge. Dave Gallus is leading the charge here, and then we have an incredible owner in Bill Cornog, who I think you guys talked to. He's feisty. He puts his money where his mouth is. He wants results. He likes execution. So that type of pressure is good for us because it gives us an opportunity to compete out the gate.
With your playing and coaching career taking to you a few different spots, one of the core topics that we like discussing here on the show is American soccer being weird and just like some oddities that the American soccer landscape can only provide. So I was going to ask you, like, which one of your stops, like I saw you had, like you mentioned already, the PDL team, which is now, if for folks tuning in, is like now called the USL 2. I mean, obviously generation's different. And then some indoor, you said some early USL, like what could you say about like the Sounders back in the USL days and stuff like that?
Well, I would say that I've been a part of most of the acronyms that have been thrown out for soccer in the United States. It's an interesting one. I don't feel 53, but I have 5 grandkids now, and I look back. Right now I talk to these players, and one of the things I would say from a 10,000 foot view is when we went to college and we would come home in the summer, we'd have to call 3 buddies and go in the backyard and play 3v3 at our own house because there wasn't any professional soccer. And then to have the opportunities that these guys have now from MLS to all of the USL opportunities, and it's growing. there's indoor soccer, there's there's TST, there's all these things where people could get paid to do what we love, and we're all incredibly lucky. And to say soccer is weird, man, I've seen it where you walk up and there's a pink slip on the front door. I've also seen it where I keep telling my wife, because we all probably could have made more money out over the last 20 years doing something else, but we really love this, and the stories and the weird histories of everything make it all very much worth it.
Darren, I vibe with that 100%. Now, the coaching and the playing side, and I'm over here in the media, and I started writing about American soccer in 2008, and I went through a marriage that ended, and I got a wife who's like, you should work in the office and do technical writing, and I'm like, no, that's not, I can't possibly. We do this because we love it. It does feel like not we are being rewarded, but the game is being rewarded, and our faith in the game is being rewarded. And obviously, Euguene is a perfect example of that, and something is starting there. So, tell me what it looks like in terms of the culture there, based on what you know, and based on what the Gallus brothers built already to this point, and what Bill Cornog brings in terms of investment.
Yeah, I used to come down here when I was running the Sounders Academy, coaching the Sounders U23 team. We would come down here and play against Lane United, which was the club that the Gallus brothers had built here. So they have a great following. They got beer drinking supporter group already ready. That's starting to come out in droves. For me to say that I understand it completely would be a misnomer, because I flew into Euguene. I'm in Euguene right now. I'm here for a few days. My wife and I are looking for a place. We're doing that whole thing. So I would shelve that for now. Give me a little bit of time to have an understanding. Sure. I would tell you that it's a community that loves their sports, and they're excited to have the team here for sure.
Well, obviously we know it's a massive college sports town, so that's interesting to kind of try to make professional soccer work. So without knowing exactly what's going on in Euguene from a bigger perspective, and being a Northwest guy, and having seen it in Richmond, right? Because I have friends who live in Richmond. I know the connections that the Kickers have to the community there, and the youth reach that the Kickers have and some of the other clubs have in Richmond is massive. Are we getting to a point where the game is sort of, infused in a community? Because at this moment with the World Cup here, so many people are talking about, including our head coach of the men's national team, soccer is too compartmentalized. It's too official. It's too obviously pay to play, right? It's not accessible the way we wanted it to be. And we don't have kids running around the streets playing the game the way we want.
Well, one, I would say that we have a wonderful culture, and people get hooked on that pay to play thing. I have traveled around the world. Somebody's always got to pay, in the end, like we sold a player, an 18-year-old out of Richmond, to Ferencváros in Hungary this year. And we were able to do that because they paid us a transfer fee, and the Kickers are better for it. Here's what I would say to you about it. Again, from the 10,000 foot view, I feel a responsibility, and not to get on a soapbox, but I want to grow the game. I want the game to get better in this country. I want to rival what it is around the world. I don't want to keep doing the same old soccer tournaments. People make all this money and the game doesn't evolve. So part of that is what I'm going to try to help do in Euguene. We want people walking around talking about the game. And like right now, everywhere you go, I was at Starbucks this morning and I could hear people talking about the World Cup and what happened yesterday and Messi scoring a hat trick. And if you can get that type of buzz going in towns this size with their own pro sports team, you can create something pretty special.
So you said you're looking for houses and you're kind of like doing the exploratory stuff. Like what do you do first time? Like when are you, I guess, going to be like in town on location full time? And like, I guess, how do you start a team?
What's your checklist look like?
Yeah. Listen, if you were to tell me in January that halfway through a season in Richmond, I would be moving to Euguene, I would have said you were crazy. But it's just the way that things evolved. And again, it's not a small thing to say that I want to honor my friend. John Gallus worked hard for the last 15 years to try to bring a pro soccer team to Eugene, Oregon. He and his brother finally got to a point where they found a great owner to do it. And unfortunately, John's not going to be here to fulfill that. So I'm here to help do that. At the same time, checklist, I do know Euguene, not extensively. We look around, we're going to check it out, but I got to run back to Richmond. We have a house to sell. We have things to do. So it'll be a bit of a remote job for a little while. But in order to get it launched correctly, you got to launch it now.
Let me ask you about the way that the USL is evolving. And this would have been a thing if you were still in Richmond, but it's definitely a thing in the same league with Sporting Cascades. And it's the idea that, hey, you win the league, you can go up a level. And obviously there are some other things, business side things, and stadiums and meeting professional league standards and all of that for the right division. But what do you think about that, Darren, as a part of American soccer now?
Amazing. It's about time. We need pro rel in the United States. It's the way it's done around the world. We need to develop players. We need to sell them on. All of these things need to happen. And it's that time. I mean, the soccer is growing like crazy. We won the league in Richmond in 2022. And I almost think that our owner didn't want us to go up because the cost of going to the next division is more. It just costs more money to run basically the same programming. So that part's still got to get solved. There still has to be a massive incentive to get promoted. In Europe, you get balloon payments and you get paid money so that you can compete. That's something that we'll have to solve here.
So looking across the USL League One landscape, being in Euguene, you'll have opponents like Spokane and AV Alta and Boise, and which are all very young and new organizations as well. Like, can you take any kind of inspiration from them? You were at a place that had unusually long roots for American soccer, but you're going to be kind of in a world of a lot of guys doing it pretty new.
Well, I will say this about all of the clubs you mentioned. I'd say it about Portland Hearts of Pine up in Maine. Boise and Spokane couldn't have launched better. They're doing an amazing job. Boise, they had 7,000 fans at the game that I coached there 2 weeks ago. AV Alta has big crowds. They're doing a great job integrating into their culture. I think we at Sporting Cascades can learn from that. Try to launch big, go big. Portland, Maine last year was an amazing atmosphere in their first year. So I think that's also, to answer your question, Jason, from earlier, it's where this is evolving. It's less of a, youth soccer, mom and pop, go to the soccer game on Friday night and then you have your soccer game on Saturday. It's more, people coming and drinking beers and getting on podcasts and talking about it and being involved in it. It's more of that now than it was before.
Well, here's the thing. Obviously, the other side of that coin, Darren, is the pressure that now is on everybody to do well. And I think we're seeing this in MLS. This year has seen a bunch of guys go. I think obviously the World Cup break is part of that, but we've seen a bunch of guys go already. And if you have pro rel on the table and your team is drifting and it's getting late and you're in trouble and maybe going down, owners are going to be more interested in making changes. So what does that mean for you as a coach? I mean, obviously it just ratchets up the accountability, but how do you address that as an American soccer coach?
Yeah, it's one of the things that was attractive here. Bill wants to win right away, and he wants to win all the time. That pressure is a good pressure because the whole club's going to be behind doing that. Each club has a different project, but let's be honest, to answer your question directly, it's exactly what it should be. We know what we're getting into as coaches. If you don't get the job done, then, that door will hit you right in the butt real quick. And I would much prefer somebody that wants to win, wants to put resources towards winning, as opposed to just operating a business for fun. I don't, not that teams operate just for fun, but we're here to win soccer games. We're here to win trophies. That's what it's supposed to be about.
Jason, earlier you said something about a faith being rewarded and people that have been keyed into the game for a long time. It's like almost like, and also to your point with Dave, like the seeds that were planted before are starting to grow now. And that's excellent. But with the World Cup now and the USA doing so well in that opening game where eyeballs are there, and so from a high end and in our backyards, the game is growing to a degree, and there's more folks talking about it, and there's more culture there. But then you see Coach Pochettino saying, United States has everything infrastructure wise and business wise to make it happen. But a kid has to fall in love with the ball first. And I guess, is there anything in your coaching philosophy that tries to coach that down to like inspire the youth in a way? Like, or is that really difficult to do as like a first team coach?
That's a big Well, I'm digesting what you just asked me, but here's what I'd say. Everywhere I've been, I have been a proponent of youth player pathway. I was involved in helping DeAndre Yedlin move to Tottenham out of Seattle. We obviously moved Griffin Garnett to Ferencváros this year. Nick Simmons was the number 3 draft in the MLS, or number 3 pick in the MLS draft this year out of our programming in Richmond. So we put our money where our mouth was. We played teenagers in every game. So what I would say is humility is the biggest thing. You know, there's an ego with everything, but whether you're coaching 5-year-olds or you're coaching 20-year-olds in the pro game, you need to make sure that they have their best chance of reaching potential. Sometimes that means you lose a soccer game to gain in the long run. And right now, the whole youth system is set up for winning soccer games and rah-rah, the American thing. The biggest difference is the kids aren't allowed to reach potential a lot of times because there's too much emphasis on that in the beginning.
Yeah, I want to ask you about just sort of how messy it is in that area of the game. Like I've always covered the professional game, Major League Soccer, the U.S. Men's National Team. Now it's a lot of the Premier League and things like that, and it's very easy to be myopic and only view the game through that lens and kind of miss the forest for the trees when it comes to the lower levels or the participation. Right? Like I live in Northern Virginia. It's very diverse. There's I think a Bolivian league that plays, men's league that plays in the school next to my house on Sundays. There's clearly a youth club that is heavily focused on East African kids because there's a big community here. And I'm always wondering, obviously the Hispanic community is massive and a lot of them love the game. Are we doing enough to connect all of those? They seem very parallel and sometimes siloed off, Darren.
You know, there's another loaded thing. I've been involved in that for a really long time. First thing I want to say is that there are wonderful people doing good work in every part of the game, whether they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year as a youth director, or they're volunteering their time in a Latino league or an ethnic league. You know, a lot of times people want to play with familiarity. You know, we found a lot, I ran the Sounders Academy, which was easy because it was fully paid for, fully funded. So you could drag any kid in from anywhere. And we did that, even from out of state and out of country. But in these youth clubs, it becomes really compartmentalized because you got to pay a certain fee that year and you got to do these things. I think one of the things that's happening is that people are making it more accessible because they're finding ways to fundraise, finding sponsors, scholarshiping players. But here's what I would tell you. In all of my time coaching youth soccer in this country, I was never not able to get a player that was good enough to play. You could always scholarship them. You could always find a way to get them. This misnomer that there's hundreds of thousands of kids that are left behind because they're not getting paid, I don't buy it. There are kids that could do it, but if there's a kid that's driven enough, you're going to find a way. The kid that's pulling you out of the door and won't leave the field after practice, you're going to find a way for him to play. I guarantee it.
Okay.
Interesting notes there, and we'll be very excited to follow the progress as Sporting Cascades works their way onto the field. First ever head coach, Darren Sawatzky, thank you so much for joining us here on Morning Kickaround.
Guys, thank you so much.